$1 billion company destroyed by one lawsuit, one controversial ingredient, and one signature that became its death sentence. 2 years later, its biggest rival bought what was left. This is how Bang Energy lost everything. In 2021, Bang Energy looked unstoppable. Its founder was worth hundreds of millions. Its cans were everywhere. Its sales were exploding. Its competitors were panicking. And its future seemed limitless. But behind the scenes, someone was already building the perfect trap. And by the time Bang Energy realized what was happening, it was already too late. Long before Bang Energy, before the neon cans, before the lawsuits, there was a former science teacher named Jack Owoc. And Jack had a very unusual obsession: human performance. For years, he lived inside the supplement industry, a strange corner of the business world where marketing often mattered more than science, where every product promised superhuman results, and where consumers desperately wanted to believe. In 1993, he founded a company called Vital Pharmaceuticals, or VPX. For nearly 20 years, the company remained relatively small. Then, Jack discovered something that would completely change his life and the entire energy drink industry. People weren't buying ingredients, they weren't buying science, they were buying identity, status, emotion, belonging, and most importantly, attention. In 2012, Bang Energy was born, and it looked nothing like anything else on the market. While Monster and Red Bull marketed adrenaline, Bang marketed transformation. The cans looked like they came from the future. The flavors sounded ridiculous. The branding was loud, aggressive, impossible to ignore. And it worked. Instead of spending hundreds of millions on traditional advertising, Jack built an army. Thousands of influencers, fitness models, TikTok creators, Instagram personalities. Everywhere you looked, someone was holding a Bang can. And then, something remarkable happened. Sales didn't grow, they exploded. Between 2017 and 2021, Bang became one of the fastest growing beverage brands in America. At its peak, it captured nearly 10% of the entire US energy drink market, a feat many experts thought was impossible. And that's when Monster Energy started paying attention. Because for the first time in years, someone wasn't just competing with Monster, someone was taking customers away from them. And the deeper Monster looked, the more interesting the story became. This is how Bang Energy lost everything. Every empire has a foundation. Every kingdom has a cornerstone. And Bang Energy had two words: super creatine. To consumers, it sounded revolutionary. To investors, it sounded proprietary. To Jack Owoc, it was the future. According to Owoc, this wasn't ordinary creatine. This was a breakthrough, a scientific leap forward, a compound so advanced it could potentially unlock benefits traditional creatine couldn't. The claims became increasingly ambitious and increasingly controversial. Fans loved it. Critics rolled their eyes. But none of that mattered because sales kept climbing, month after month, quarter after quarter, year after year. To most observers, the debate was irrelevant. The product was winning. The company was winning. Jack was winning. But buried beneath the success, there was a question nobody seemed interested in asking. What if it wasn't true? And in 2000 Terra, Monster Energy decided to find out. Monster Beverage Corporation isn't famous for emotional decisions. It's famous for calculated ones. Monster had spent decades building a multi-billion-dollar machine, and machines don't panic. They analyze, they calculate, then they act. In 2018, Monster filed a federal lawsuit against Bang Energy. At first glance, it looked ordinary. Big companies sue each other all the time. Most lawsuits disappear quietly. Most never matter. This one was different, because hidden inside the lawsuit was a question worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Was super creatine actually creatine? Monster wasn't interested in clever marketing. They wanted laboratory answers, scientific answers, answers a jury could understand. And over the next few years, those answers would become incredibly expensive. Because the deeper investigators looked, the more dangerous the situation became. Not just for Bang, not just for Jack, but for the entire company. And while Monster's lawyers were quietly building their case, Jack Owoc made a decision that would eventually become the most expensive mistake of his career. A decision involving one of the most powerful corporations on Earth, PepsiCo. At the time, it looked like a partnership. In reality, it was the beginning of the end. At first, it looked like the biggest victory in Jack Owoc's career. After years of explosive growth, Bang had become too large to distribute on its own. The company wasn't struggling to sell drinks anymore. It was struggling to get them onto shelves. And there was only one company capable of solving that problem: PepsiCo, one of the largest distribution machines on Earth. In early 2010, Bang signed an exclusive nationwide distribution agreement with Pepsi. To investors, it looked brilliant. Pepsi would put Bang inside nearly every gas station, grocery chain, and vending machine across North America. Jack believed this was the move that would finally allow Bang to overtake Monster. Instead, it became the beginning of the company's slow suffocation. Here's what made the agreement so dangerous. It wasn't just a partnership, it was exclusive. That meant Bang couldn't simply change its mind if things went wrong. It had handed over the keys to its entire distribution network. Only months into the agreement, Jack started complaining. He believed Pepsi wasn't giving Bang enough attention. He argued that store shelves weren't being replenished quickly enough, that sales teams weren't pushing the product, that Pepsi cared more about protecting its own beverage portfolio. Pepsi completely disagreed. According to them, the real problem wasn't distribution, it was Bang itself. Nobody outside those boardrooms knew who was telling the truth, but customers noticed something strange. Bang suddenly became harder to find. Some stores had empty shelves, others stopped carrying certain flavors. Sales began slowing, and when an ultra-fast growing company slows, Wall Street notices. Jack became convinced someone inside Pepsi was sabotaging him. Whether that belief was justified or not, he made a decision that stunned the entire beverage industry. In October 2020, Jack Owoc publicly announced that Bang was firing Pepsi. Not through private negotiations, not through lawyers, through a press release. It was one of the boldest corporate moves of the decade, and almost immediately, it backfired. Because Pepsi wasn't interested in debating the announcement, they simply went to court. Within days, an emergency arbitrator reviewed the agreement. The decision was swift. Bang couldn't leave. The contract remained legally binding. Jack Owoc hadn't fired Pepsi. He had only announced that he wanted to. Legally, nothing had changed. Think about that for a second. Imagine believing your business partner is hurting your company, but the courts force you to stay together anyway. For nearly 2 years, Bang and Pepsi were trapped inside one of the ugliest corporate relationships in modern business history. And while everyone focused on the Pepsi drama, Monster wasn't watching the headlines. Monster was watching something else entirely: the evidence. Most lawsuits revolve around contracts, money, patents, or trademarks. Monster's strategy was different. They wanted science, real science, not marketing, not influencer videos, not Instagram captions, laboratory proof, independent testing focused on one phrase. Two simple words printed across every Bang can: super creatine. If those claims held up, Bang could defend itself. If they didn't, everything changed. Years of laboratory work eventually produced an answer, one that Monster's legal team had been waiting for. According to evidence presented in court, the compound marketed as super creatine was not shown to provide the same established benefits associated with traditional creatine. That single scientific dispute became the foundation of Monster's case. Monster argued that consumers purchased Bang based on claims that were not adequately supported. If a jury agreed, the financial consequences would be catastrophic. By late 2022, the courtroom battle finally began. For weeks, Monster slowly dismantled Bang's defense. One witness, one document, one scientific report at a time. Monster didn't need dramatic speeches. The cans spoke for themselves. Every single one carried the same promise. Now, Monster's lawyers only needed to convince 12 ordinary people that promise wasn't true. Then, Jack Owoc took the stand. The man who had spent years dominating social media now faced a very different audience. Not followers, not influencers, not customers. A federal jury. And what happened next changed everything. For nearly 4 years, the battle had been building toward this moment. Thousands of pages of evidence, months of testimony, scientific reports, marketing materials, emails, expert witnesses. Everything came down to 12 ordinary citizens. The courtroom didn't erupt. There were no dramatic speeches, no shouting, just one sentence that instantly changed the future of an entire company. The jury awarded Monster $293 million, one of the largest false advertising awards ever seen in the beverage industry. For most companies, that kind of judgment would already be devastating. For Bang, it was only the beginning. While Bang was still reeling from that verdict, another legal battle reached its conclusion. A separate trademark dispute added yet another massive financial obligation. Within weeks, the pressure became unbearable. The lawsuits weren't just expensive anymore. They threatened the company's ability to survive. Think of a skyscraper. It doesn't collapse because of one broken window. It collapses when the weight becomes greater than the foundation can carry. Bang had reached that point. In October 2022, Vital Pharmaceuticals filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection. A company once valued at roughly $1.4 billion was now fighting simply to stay alive. Suppliers wanted payment. Creditors wanted answers. Employees wanted certainty. But certainty no longer existed. For 30 years, Jack Owoc had built this company. Every product, every marketing campaign, every risk, every victory. Now, he was losing control of it. In early 2023, Bang's board removed its own founder from operational control. The man who created the company was no longer leading it. History has a strange sense of irony. Sometimes, the hardest part isn't watching your company fail. It's watching it continue without you. With Bang in bankruptcy, its assets were placed on the market. Factories, equipment, recipes, distribution rights, the brand itself. Everything had a price. And there was one company better positioned than anyone else: Monster Beverage. In July 2023, Monster completed the acquisition of substantially all of Bang Energy's assets for approximately $362 million. Think about that. A business that had once been valued at roughly $1.4 billion changed hands for a fraction of that amount. Whether you view it as brilliant strategy or ruthless timing, the outcome was undeniable. Monster didn't simply survive a fast-growing rival, it ended up owning much of what that rival had built. Epilogue, the lesson. Today, Bang Energy still exists, but it's a different brand. The controversial claims are gone, its marketing has changed, its founder is gone, and the company now operates under different ownership. Jack Owoc didn't fail because he dreamed big. Some of the greatest companies in history began with impossible ideas. He didn't fail because he challenged giants. Disruption is part of business. He failed because, as the stakes grew higher, the margin for error disappeared. And when one of the world's largest beverage companies saw an opening, it didn't rely on louder advertising or cheaper prices. It relied on lawyers, science, patience, and capital. In business, the most dangerous competitor isn't always the one trying to beat you. Sometimes, it's the one quietly waiting for you to beat yourself. Because once the cracks appear, the giants don't rush in. They wait. They watch. And when the moment is right, they don't just bury the empire. They buy what's left of it. If you enjoyed this documentary, subscribe for more stories about the biggest corporate battles, business empires, and the decisions that changed entire industries.